Hello world, today is May 20th, 2024. My name is ChilleDeCastro. I'm a journalist who's been wrongfully imprisoned in Clark County Detention Center in Las Vegas, Nevada. It was a kangaroo court from the beginning. I had a biased and unprincipled judge who sentenced me to 6 months in jail for obstruction and resisting. The research we've done has shown that in the past 5 years in that same courtroom with that same judge, she's put nobody in jail for obstruction. And the 4 cases that went to trial, none of those people were sentenced to jail. They were all given anger management, impulse training, and then the misdemeanor fell off their record. So what's happening in our country right now, and we're seeing in the newspapers, we're seeing that censorship is becoming the way of this government. And what's happening right now is history is repeating itself. If we go back to the year 1917, Woodrow Wilson has become president. And it's a real shame that he became president at all whatsoever. Because what happened in 1912, Theodore Roosevelt and William Howard Taft ran against each other, and they were both the Republican representatives. And then they split the vote. They got 7.5 million votes, and Woodrow Wilson got 6 million. If they had not ran against each other, then most likely Theodore Roosevelt would have been president because he got more votes than William Howard Taft. However, when Woodrow Wilson got in, he was an authoritarian, total demigod. And in 1917, he encouraged Congress to pass what was called the Espionage Act. And so in 1917, Woodrow Wilson encouraged Congress to pass the Espionage Act. And the Espionage Act said that if you say anything that's against the government or against the military, then you can be sentenced to jail for 10 years and fined $20,000. And then in 1918, he encouraged the government to pass the Sedition Act, which limited what you could put in the mail as far as petitioning to the general public or petitioning to the government. And he gave the Postmaster General the right to simply throw away your mailing. So then what happens in 1918, Eugene Debs, who had ran on the socialist ticket in 1900, 1904, 1908, and 1912, every single election, Eugene Debs, who was a socialist and a communist, which I don't agree with, but he has the right to run. He has the right to be heard. In 1900, I think he got like 100,000 votes when he ran against McKinley. And then in 1904, when he ran against Theodore Roosevelt, he got a couple 100,000 votes. And then in 1908, when he ran against William Howard Taft, he got 400,000 votes or something like that. And then in 1912, when he ran against Woodrow Wilson, he almost got 1 million votes. And then Woodrow Wilson gets into office, and he passes those 2 acts back to back, 1917 and 1918, the Espionage Act of 1917, the Sedition Act of 1918. Later in the year in 1918, when Eugene Debs gives a speech that's anti-war, he's arrested and sentenced to 10 years in prison for giving a speech that's anti-war. What are we seeing in today's world? They now are making it, and both House and Senate voted on a bill that makes it a criminal act to say those words on a college campus. We are repeating history. That's what's happening right now in our country. They're repeating history. The government is censoring words you can say because they don't like them. And we have to stand up against that. You have a First Amendment right enshrined in the Constitution, enshrined in the Bill of Rights, that has been there since 1793. You have the right to petition the government. You have the right to say words you want to say as long as you're not threatening somebody else with harm. You can petition the government anytime you want. As long as you're not sending out threats, then you can send any petition you want. The petition should be clean. The petition should be fair. The petition should be honest. You should be redressing government through petition. I'm in a dungeon for filming cops because the lady judge was married to a cop. Her last name is still the name of Lieutenant Zimmerman. I'm allowed to say these things. I'm pointing out absolute facts. You have a right to petition that biased and unprincipled judge and redress her and tell her that what she's done is unjust and wrong. And there's nothing wrong with that. You can do that. Now, I'm paying the price for it right now. I'm a martyr to the cause of the First Amendment to have freedom of press. We have the right to film cops. They made a vague and capricious NRS code 192.190 that is so vague and so wide open that you can charge anybody with obstruction anytime you want. I have 50 more days in this dungeon until my appeal is heard. And you're allowed to petition that judge as well and say that she should immediately release me from jail and that this case should be overturned on appeal. You are allowed to petition the court Don't let anybody tell you that you're not. It is not true. I'm leading in the proper way. Make sure that your petition is immaculate, that it's clean, that it's concise, that you identify yourself. Here's my name. Here's my address. I'm writing a petition on behalf of Chille DeCastro. He should not be in jail. He shouldn't have been put in jail. He should be released from jail. His case should be overturned on appeal. That's your petition, and there's nothing wrong with that. We are repeating history right now. We're doing the exact same thing that we did in 1917 and 1918 when Theodore Roosevelt and William Howard Taft split the vote, and then we got somebody in office that nobody wanted. 6 million people voted for Woodrow Wilson. 7.5 million people voted for Taft and Roosevelt. Roosevelt was one of the best leaders. Theodore Roosevelt was one of the best presidents we had in U.S. history. He did an amazing job. But remember, they didn't ever plan on Theodore Roosevelt becoming president. When William McKinley is reelected in 1900 after he was elected in 1896, in 1900, when William McKinley was reelected, he was shot and killed 6 months into his presidency. He had picked up Theodore Roosevelt as his running mate because they split the ticket so that North and South would vote for different people. When Theodore Roosevelt got into office, the big business people hated it. They hated it. It's crazy because Theodore Roosevelt and Franklin Delano Roosevelt are both related, 30 years apart in the presidency. But I'll tell you what, Theodore Roosevelt and Franklin Delano Roosevelt were two of the best presidents we have. They were for the people. They were for workers. You remember, we had the Lochner era from 1897 till 1937. The Lochner era of court, it actually goes back to 1896. And I think that it's going to be Santa Barbara versus Railroad Company. I can't remember the exact case, where they said the 14th Amendment applies to corporations. It's just so ridiculous. So they took that holding of the 14th Amendment is the same as corporations it is for people, that they have equal protection under the law, and they abused it from 1897 to 1937. The only way the Lochner era ended is when Franklin Delano Roosevelt got to office and passed the New Deal. Now, you may not agree with parts of the New Deal, but he broke up the monopoly of having absolute power over workers because he instituted an 8-hour workday for federal employees, and then that spread to other employees. And then I believe it was U.S. Steel Company was the first company that had to recognize that they had a union. And now what do we have unions for in our country? The most powerful unions in our country now are government unions, the police unions, the postal workers unions, but regular unions for regular people, they don't exist. They're not anywhere. Where should the number one union be right now? In the UFC. The UFC fighters should have a union because they don't have a collective bargaining agreement like the NBA and the MLB, and they should have a collective bargaining agreement. So the government has continued to strip away and usurp power from the people using everything they can to hurt us and work against our Bill of Rights. And so that's where we are right now. That's what I'm in right now. I'm in this horrible dungeon right now, and I'm dealing with this crap because I stood on my First Amendment rights, and now I'm in a dungeon. So I literally am a martyr for the cause of our First Amendment right to be pressed. Tomorrow, on May 23rd, 2024, we have a hearing in the district court. The hearing is about an enlargement of pages for the motion that Chris Oram filed. When you file a appeal brief, it's supposed to be 10 pages. This appeal brief that we filed is 29 pages. So immediately upon filing the brief, Chris Oram filed to have a motion heard about it. Now, as of this moment, the district attorney's office has not opposed the enlargement of pages. So it looks like tomorrow's motion hearing should go smoothly. I will be in court tomorrow. I know the cameras will be there. So it's always a lot of pressure when they bring you into a courtroom in chains. It is a humiliating, despicable process that we are still using from slavery era, where they chain you up as though you are some sort of homicidal killer. All they would have to do is move the bailiff station between the judge and the defendant to ensure the safety of the judge and the jury. That's all that they would have to do. But instead of that, they put us all in torture custody. The process of going to the hearing tomorrow, of going to that hearing, going through the appeal motion hearing tomorrow is going to be absolutely horrible for me. I'll get up at 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning. They put me in chains. They take me down to a holding cell where there's 80 men in a room that's supposed to hold 40. Everybody's extraordinarily loud, and everybody's chained up from head to toe. It's going to be a miserable process for me. It's absolutely the height of a despotic government when you put everybody in chains like we're all Kunta Kinte from 1850. I feel like the Fugitive Slave Act is right back into motion today. So that's just the update of what's going on in the legal proceedings. I cannot be released tomorrow. There's no chance the judge will release me tomorrow. The earliest date I can be released from this dungeon is July 10th, 2024. I want to say thank you to everybody who sent me iCare gifts. There's iCareGifts.com. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Everybody who's contributed or donated to my GoFundMes, thank you so much. I'm so grateful. It means the world to me. You guys covered 90% of my legal costs. I really appreciate it. Today is May 22nd, 2024. This is ChilleDeCastro. This is my daily journalistic update from the dungeon in Clark County Detention Center in Las Vegas, Nevada. I love you. I'll see you guys on the next one. Later, Gators.